Hello and welcome. I'm Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UAP, UFO-related events, anywhere and anywhere. Today I'll be doing a review of UAP disclosure-related events. So Dr. Stephen Greer recently put this out, and I quote, "The entity which controls the UFO matter has more power than any single government in the world or any single identified world leader. This cabal is a hybrid quasi-government, quasi-privatized operation which is international and functions outside of the purview of any single agency or any single government." And this all has a red background. And Dr. Greer is known for endorsing the conspiracy theory that it's a global cabal that controls all the NHI UAP information. Also significant, Luis Elizondo finally came out with a book called Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, Imminent. And most people are just calling it Imminent. Luis Elizondo posted on X about his book coming out. "It is my honor and my duty to share this information with you now. My new book, Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, will be published by William Morrow in August 2024. Imminent is my call to action. The stakes could not be higher. This is an accurate portrayal of events as they happened. This book underwent a 9-month U.S. government security review, and I had a senior member of ATIP review the manuscript to ensure everything is exact and authentic. This is more than my story. It is our story, and I wrote it for you, the public, so that there is no question as to what we are dealing with and what the future might bring. After reading it, I think it will be clear why this topic is so incredibly important." And here's another shot of what the book looks like. And he says that you can pre-order it and sign up for emails to stay in the loop. And if you go to the link that he provides, you see that you can order it right from here or get live updates for the debut of the book. And as we all know, Luis Elizondo is the famous whistleblower from the 2017 New York Times expose. Luis Elizondo is also the former head of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP. And ATIP was the Pentagon unit that researched UFOs, now known as Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon, or UAPs. I also got this from the New Paradigm Institute, who's endorsing the book. And as many of you might know from listening to my podcast, the head of the New Paradigm Institute, Dan Sheehan, is Lou Elizondo's lawyer. And Dan Sheehan writes, "As many of you know, I've been legally representing UFO UAP whistleblower Lou Elizondo since shortly after the publication of the now famous 2017 The New York Times UAP article. However, I should clarify that technically speaking, Lou is not a whistleblower, as all the information he provided to the New York Times has been cleared by the Department of Defense pre-publication Security and Policy Review, or DOPSR, before publication by the Times. Since the article, Lou has come rough sledding. Therefore, he announced recently that his life has been threatened. But after DOPSR held up the publication of his book for many months, Lou's book has now been cleared for publication and will be available for purchase in August." Okay, so there you have it. His book has been cleared, and you guys can pre-order it, and you should be able to get a hold of it by August. I'd like to move on now and talk about Colonel Karl E. Knell. He's the current modernization advisor to Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. He gave an earth-shattering speech on UFO disclosure and non-human intelligence, or NHI, at the Seoul conference. Among other bombshells, Colonel Knell asserted that he had zero doubt that NHI are here on Earth and have been interacting with humans for quite some time. Knell also touched on the 6 reasons he thinks the U.S. government doesn't want to disclose what it knows. Lastly, he suggested that a new version of the UAP Disclosure Act will be included this summer in the 2025 National Defense Authorization Act. Okay, so right about here, Colonel Karl Knell says that NHI have visited this planet and that we're interacting with them.
For this discussion.
And so, Karl, here's the million-dollar question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
Just want to jump ahead a little bit here, where he says there's no doubt about that.
How confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
Okay, so you heard it here. Karl Knell said that there's zero doubt that NHI are here and among us. Okay, so let's skip ahead to where he talks about why the government hasn't exposed the NHI presence.
Karl, I mean, what you're saying is extremely consequential, and you've referenced other people that have said the same thing that also have similar credibility. There's similar reasons for why we should believe many of these folks, yet the government itself has not formally disclosed. They've been very reluctant to do that. Why? Why do you think that is?
So there's 6 basic reasons, and this, again, you could draw this out from first principles. There's a national security reason. There's the lack of a plan. There's the potential for societal disruption. There's the possibility that there's some non-public agreement. There's the potential for misdeeds and a desire to cover up misdeeds. And there's just the basic organizational intransigence and lack of priority that might be associated with the topic. So all these things are factors. The issue is that really the national security issue subsumes all the others. And so there's an opportunity maybe to contract the national security issue.
Okay, so now I'm going to skip ahead and show his 3 reasons for disclosure. He just gave the 6 reasons why disclosure isn't happening. But he does talk about why disclosure should happen.
Yet, you still believe that we should disclose, is that right?
Correct, right. So there's really 3 reasons that trump all those others. And those others are basically valid, like I said. So the first issue is the moral right. The government exists for and by the people. And so the nature of reality is fundamentally not government information. People have a right to know the world in which we live, and the pursuit of happiness requires that knowledge. So that's sort of the first kind of overarching philosophical foundation for this. But, as a corollary to that, if there are misdeeds that were done, then they need to be remediated. If there's lack of proper oversight, which is suggested by some of the whistleblowers, that needs to be remediated. So the first issue is the moral issue. The second issue is being in a reactive mode is never preferable to being in a proactive mode. So reactive mode is basically trying to prevent disclosure. But failing that, you might get a situation where you have catastrophic disclosure that creates all the problems that you're trying to prevent. So a more balanced middle path of controlled disclosure is the best way to do this, which is, again, an argument for some amount of disclosure. And the third part is simply societal advance and global competitiveness. More brain trust needs to be brought into this topic in order to make progress and to improve society. And so...
Absolutely. And I think Dr. Greer has said that a number of times, that the NHI technology would vastly improve our society. I'd like to move on now and move to the part in the interview where he says that the government has already admitted disclosure for anybody that was paying attention.
It's like an all or nothing. The government has already indicated that unidentified anomalous phenomena are real, they're not ours, and they're not our adversaries. The Pentagon has said that. Like, for people that are paying attention, like, that show already dropped. So,
okay, so you heard it there. The Pentagon has definitely admitted that UAPs are real and that they're here. I'd like to move on to where the interviewer questions him about the national security threat associated with UAPs.
But do you think that the phenomena, this non-human form of intelligence, represents a threat to humanity?
So this is a good question too, and some of the other folks have sort of framed things in that light. And I guess I would suggest that if the universe is governed by conservation laws, and it's probably reasonable to assume the laws of nature that we understand apply everywhere. We may have incomplete understanding, undoubtedly we do, of these laws, but they're sort of homogeneous and they apply throughout the universe. And so those laws are governed by conservation rules. There's conserved quantities. And so this reality really forces a Darwinian type competition in order to survive. And so it's reasonable to assume any other civilization that's evolved has come up through the same Darwinian evolutionary process. So I think it's naive to expect complete altruism until and unless you get to a post.
Yeah, I agree. If they're competing for the same resources as we are, then, they're going to be just like us. Some will be benevolent, some will be malevolent. Going to move on a bit here in the interview. And Karl Knell talks about disclosure being cyclical, which I've thought about myself, how we get to a point and then we stop, and then it sort of ebbs and flows, in other words.
If we continue down this disclosure path, do you believe that disclosure is inevitable?
So, again, people that sort of look at this topic and study it, and there have been some good examinations on this from a historical standpoint, have realized that, we're not in really a new state. This sort of disclosure emphasis has come and gone over time. And so this is not the first time we've arrived at this stage. I would suggest that maybe the peak of this current cycle happened last December with the Schumer Amendment, and then it got rolled back and was defeated in the House. And so it remains to be seen, if the process is going to continue. One hopes and can maybe draw a little bit of confidence that maybe this will come around is the colloquy that Senator Schumer and Senator Rounds had back in December. After their amendment got killed, they basically went on the Senate floor and articulated their rationale for the legislation, and I think Senator Schumer, to quote him, almost said it was a travesty that this did not pass.
Okay, so what is happening right now in Congress as far as pushing for UAP disclosure? Let's take a look at what Representative Tim Burchett and Paulina Luna are doing as far as pushing for UAP disclosure. And this post was by Jeremy Corbell. UFOs on the Hill today, exclamation point. Here is a clip from the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Accountability hearing. Representative Luna and Representative Tim Burchett asked UAP-related questions to Secretary Granholm, representing the Department of Energy. The last question by Representative Luna was a banger, exclamation point. Why do you think she asked it? The DOE, or the Department of Energy, has long been said to have a significant hand in the recovery and reverse engineering of UFOs, specifically JSOC, or the Joint Special Operations Command, has been implicated in conducting retrieval missions of UAP. The convergence of credible whistleblower testimony, historical proposals for reverse engineering programs, and the operational capabilities of JSOC strongly suggest that they play a significant role in these secretive activities. And I'm going to play this video so you can see how Secretary Granholm skirts around the whole issue. But Representative Luna pushes as far as she can. Here we go.
In the 19 years since the first UFO was sighted, there has been no evidence that unidentified flying objects are a threat to our national security.
Chair, now recognize Mr. Burchett from Tennessee.
I was going to follow up with the numerous reports by the Federal Protective Services officers describing suspicious occurrences of UAPs over nuclear facilities.
Let me just say, the Defense Department has said there is no evidence of UFOs, et cetera, or aliens in the United States. However, at those
Okay, so she's just quoting what ARRA, or the Old Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, put out about there being no evidence after their extensive research. They found no evidence of UAP or UAP-related activities. She's blaming everything now on drones, as you see here.
sites, there may be drones that may be nefarious. And so we are definitely looking at that and making sure that our national security sites are protected. We have a whole program related to countering drones that may be coming from
Well, this isn't about drones, and this is prior to drones even. What protocols does the Department of Energy have for reporting and responding to any UAP sightings near nuclear infrastructure? I appreciate you answering that, if there are any protocols.
Well, certainly there are protocols whenever we see anything unusual around our nuclear sites or our national security sites writ large.
Chair recognizes Ms. Luna from Florida.
Okay, so it's unfortunate that Secretary Granholm, I guess she's being put out there as a scapegoat, but you can see how Representative Tim Burchett is having none of it, and he's pushing for more answers. Listen to Representative Luna now and see how assertive she is as well.
Secretary Granholm, earlier when Representative Burchett asked you about some UAP stuff, you said that the DoD essentially had denied any existence of that, and you referred to them as drones, correct?
It's my understanding that the Department of Defense has looked at this and issued a report about it.
I have a lot of questions, so just quick and concise if possible. There have been persistent claims and reports, including those from credible whistleblowers to this committee, suggesting that the U.S. government, potentially including the Department of Energy, has been involved in reverse engineering technologies recovered from UAP. For example, the Pentagon's proposed Kona Blue program aimed at reverse engineering such technologies, although it was ultimately not established. Can you clarify whether the Department of Energy has been involved in any such efforts, or, either historically or currently, to analyze reverse engineering materials from related to UAPs?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay, there are several reports indicated frequent drone incursions over DOE nuclear facilities, including an incident on April 1st, 2021 at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, also known as LLNL. Can you detail the DOE's current security measures to prevent unauthorized drone activities or UAPs, and what steps are being taken to enhance these measures of frequencies of incidences?
Yeah, we have a whole counter drone effort to make sure that all of our national security sites and our labs are protected from incursions from drones, I'll just say, that are not authorized. So there's a whole series of protocols, probably not ripe for discussion in this public setting.
Correct. So I reviewed some unclassified materials from around the 40s and 50s, and so they weren't just being reported as drones back then, and I encourage you to look over those materials because I think that you guys should be upgrading that program to cover down on UAPs. There have been documented...
Okay, so there she makes a point of differentiating between drones and UAP. Before, they were being referred to as UAPs when they were being documented, and now the Department of Energy is referring to them as drones.
Sightings of metallic spheres over DOE facilities, if you want to call them drones in this instance, such as one report on April 30th, 2019 over LLNL. What investigations have been conducted in regards to these sightings, and what conclusions do you guys have about the nature and origins of these objects?
I'm happy to follow up with you on that.
Okay, we'll be submitting also too for public record some questions after this, if you could please answer those. Considering the DOE's involvement in nuclear and sensitive research facilities, how does the DOE coordinate with agencies like the Department of Defense and ARRO to investigate UAP sightings?
We obviously are teamed with the Department of Defense because of our national security and nuclear mission.
Are you able to cite any specific investigations or shared data analysis efforts?
I don't have information on that.
Okay. As of right now, again, we'll be submitting some questions for you after this, but I hope that you guys can answer those in a timely fashion. And again, for those that might be tuning into this, I would encourage you to look at some of those unclassified materials, and we'll be happy to provide your office with that.
Okay, so I think now she corners the Secretary Granholm, and she questions her about JSOC.
I'll just follow up by one other question, I guess, to close it out. Does the DOE currently work with JSOC in order to handle security measures?
We work with all of the security entities around the federal government. We're part of an overall all-of-government effort on both cyber as well as national security.
Do you guys work with JSOC? Yes or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. I yield the rest of my time, Chairman.
Okay, so there it is. She cornered her and she asked her for a yes or no answer. So there, the Department of Energy is admitting being complicit in being in cahoots with JSOC. So you can see that Congress is getting more and more aggressive with this whole UAP transparency issue. And a lot of us become impatient with whistleblowers and we wonder why more don't come out and why they aren't more forthcoming. Found a video that explains why whistleblowers have to be so careful. So I found this on Reddit, and it's an excellent breakdown of why whistleblowers have to operate with extreme caution. It's by r/UFOB. This is an actual death penalty clause for violating U.S. Code Title 18, Chapter 37, Section 794. And it gets even better. It says in black and white that you aren't necessarily guaranteed the right to a jury. Check this out.
Chapter 37, Section 794. Section 794 is definitely the meat and potatoes of the we aren't effing around, don't violate this NDA deterrent. 794, Section A, whoever with intent or reason to believe that it will be used to injure the United States or to the advantage of a foreign nation, information related to national defense shall be punished by death or by imprisonment for any term of years or for life. Okay, pause. This is an actual death penalty clause written right into this agreement. Or at the very least, you could be locked up for any undetermined amount of years or for life. Good Lord. Wait, it gets better. It goes on to say that the sentence of death shall not be imposed unless the jury, or if there is no jury, pause here again. Did you hear that? If there is no jury? So this is blatantly saying in black and white that you are not guaranteed or have the right to a jury trial. Wow. Continuing. So if there is no jury, the court further finds that the offense resulted in the identification by a foreign power of an individual acting as an agent of the United States and consequently in the death of that individual. Basically, if you're ousted as an agent and killed, it's justified for the crime. But then there's Section 794 Provision B that states whoever, in time of war, with intent that the same as the provision above, shall be communicated to the enemy, shall be punished by death or by imprisonment for any term of years or for life. So that's death threat number 2 in the same clause. And you wonder why people who are under these NDAs are terrified to just come out with it and tell us what you know, bro. Because if they do it in the wrong way to the wrong person, they could literally be sentenced to death. And that may happen without their case even being heard by a jury of peers. So here's what you do. If you ever hear people bitching online or anywhere about why doesn't Grusch or Elizondo or Karl Knell or Chris Mellon or anybody who is operating under security clearance doesn't just come out and tell us everything they know, send them this video so they can try to wrap their impatient little minds around the severity and seriousness of what it actually means to commit that violation. Oh, and as with all these offenses, if this happens in or on the premises of personal property, the government can fully legally come in and seize any property if they determine that it was used to facilitate the sharing or acquisition of classified information. So let's just paint a little picture here to drive home Section 794 all the way home. Let's say I'm buddies with David Grusch, and he has my wife and I over for dinner one night at his house. This is all just hypothetical, by the way. I don't know Mr. Grusch, but thank you for your service, Dave, if you ever see this. So in this example, we're hanging out. Let's say we have a glass of wine with dinner and Dave starts getting loose lips. Let's say he tells me some classified information about defense secrets related to UFOs that I'm not cleared to know about. If he owns the house that it happened in, it could be seized simply because it was used in the facilitation of the dissemination of classified information. Taking this example a step further, and again, to clarify for anyone or any agency watching, this is all hypothetical. I didn't have dinner with Dave, and I don't have any friends or family in foreign nations considered to be adversaries of the United States. But for example's sake, let's say I did. Let's say I had a cousin in Russia, and I ended up telling this cousin about what Dave had told me about this classified national defense-related information at the house that night. Dave and I technically would now be on the hook for disseminating classified defense information. Because Dave has a clearance and thus has signed the NDA document SF-312, if prosecutors could show this as harmful to the United States, Dave could be facing the death penalty or life in prison. Now, if that doesn't scare the shit out of you and make your butt pucker at the thought of simply saying the wrong thing to the wrong person in the wrong environment, then you're a stone-cold statue of steel. But as you can imagine, most sane people working under this agreement are rightfully fearful and more likely just downright terrified to break this NDA, and why it's so powerful in its ability to muzzle those who could potentially break the dams of catastrophic disclosure wide open to the world.
Wow. So I thought that was a good, succinct way of explaining why whistleblowers don't come forward more, or why they're so reticent and to come forward. My name is Al Barrows. This has been UFO Disclosure. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of UAP disclosure items. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep the kids in the Ukraine and Gaza in our prayers. Let's try and manifest a positive shield of protection for them. Thank you. Thank you all for listening to my podcast.